Welcome back. It's time to tackle an issue that's making waves in the banking industry. More than 140 million Americans bank with credit unions, and there's a push underway to tax those credit unions at the federal level. As you might imagine, that's not sitting well with the credit unions. Joining us to talk about that is John Holt, President and CEO of Nutmeg State Financial Credit Union, and Bruce Adams, President and CEO of the Credit Union League of Connecticut. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Bruce, let me start with you because you're the overreaching organization. Tell me what is happening. It's this credit union tax exemption. What does it mean?
Right. Well, so credit unions as businesses are unique in that they're co-ops. They're a cooperative business. And so, like many organizations, they're tax exempt. Now, at the outset, credit unions and other tax exempt organizations still pay tax on payroll, all sorts of stuff. But the regular business income tax is exempt because there's a benefit to a community. Just like a charity, just like a house of worship, and certainly in the area of cooperative finance, just like credit unions.
So, John, one of the big things you want people to know is that this could harm the community, in your opinion.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, you know, credit unions and banks are different. They may look the same, that we all have branches, we have similar products and services, we have technology that's similar or in some cases better than banks, but when we're not paying taxes, we can pass on that savings, if you will, to the membership. And they're not called customers, they're called members. So oftentimes you'll see little to no fees with a credit union compared to a bank, lower rates on loans, higher rates on deposit accounts, and that personalized service, because most of the time credit unions are local. So they understand the communities better. We're not headquartered in North Carolina. We're not headquartered somewhere else. We're here.
And so that provides that direct access, I guess, to customers. And listen, the credit unions commissioned a study, an independent study, 33 billion potential lost taxes, gross domestic product going down, 822,000 jobs lost, all if this comes into play. Of course, the banks had their own independent study that says 62% of U.S. adults say credit unions should be taxed. Do they not understand, Bruce? Why do you think that the banks are having this kind of poll?
Because we've built a better mousetrap than they have. And so, you know, their study says that we should be taxed. Our study says, here's the actual concrete benefit and impact in the United States. And let's go to lending activity. When you look at loans that credit unions make as against loans that banks make, overwhelmingly, our loans are on Main Street, in our pizza shops, in our small businesses, for people who are trying to get off the ground, driving Uber, for instance. Those are the loans that drive our American economy more than 5 big banks getting together to build a skyscraper.
And you think that is why they should be taxed differently?
100%. 100%, because we are helping businesses get off the ground in America, and that is a more important economic driver than anything.
And one of the arguments that seems to be gaining some traction is from smaller community banks who say, okay, sure, there's big guys who meet what you just said, but we're the little guy, we're the local guy too. Why should we be taxed differently? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so the difference there is those boards of directors are shareholders, and in the language of business that like not a lot of people get is a member, when it comes to a credit union, is an owner of the business. It's not a member of a club. And like when you form an LLC, those are members who are there. So the shareholders of the community bank are the ones who take the profit out, and they can bring that money anywhere they want. The members of a credit union, the shareholders, receive the profits back in the form of lower interest rates, higher interest rates on their savings, and those dollars flow back onto Main Street. And that's the key difference. And their credit unions community banks are more than welcome to come in the water over here. It's warm, it's fine, and join us.
John, tell me about maybe some of the misconceptions of a credit union. When you tell people what you do and who you serve, sometimes they're surprised because they think there's restrictions that don't exist.
Yeah, and you know, some credit unions do have some restrictions in some cases, but in terms of Nutmeg, we can go anywhere, essentially, because our field of membership is set up with some limitation, but not many. And oftentimes people will think, well, do I have to belong to a union? Or do I need to have established credit? Or what if I live in another state? And in some cases, there are restrictions, which is not necessarily a level playing field also with the banks, because we have some limitations on what we can do and what we can't do. But we are part of an affiliation that allows us to offer our membership pretty much anywhere in the country. They have to join an association to be able to do that. at Nutmeg's case, but there's often this misnomer. I mean, I don't know how many conversations, Eric, that I have that people will actually say, oh, I didn't know I could join. Don't I have to be part of a union? And I didn't realize I could do that. I thought I could just open a savings account. And they don't realize that we do mortgages, we do home equity loans, we have checking accounts. And then when they find out there's a vast array of products and services like banks, and then they get the personalized service and these other benefits, they're like, wow. And I've thankfully been able to do a lot of conversions from people I've met from a bank to a credit union for a lot of those reasons.
Do you have a feel for Nutmeg, what the effect could be if the tax passes? Like, do you have a feel how it affects? Because there's going to be people watching on this Sunday morning saying, well, I bank with you. I have my account with you. I'm a member.
Yep.
How does it affect you and your people? Have you run those numbers?
Oh, we would probably see a minimum of a 40% drop in any of the returns that we get that we can pass on to our membership. So those benefits that we were talking about, the less fees, lower rates on deposit on loans, higher rates on deposit accounts, that could technically go away, and we'd have to look at our business model. Because in Nutmeg's case, our business model is really trying to help the underserved and the lower to moderate income populations and communities, and we would have to really look at it very differently, which would be unfortunate, because this is a movement, in our opinion, that really helps the people in the communities, and more specifically, it helps the lower income individuals. And I'm not saying banks don't attempt to do that or try to do that, but without taxes, it helps us to do that. And again, we have some limitations the banks don't have. For example, we're capped in certain capacities on how much we can lend in the business, on business loans. We can't just go and do the skyscraper that Bruce mentioned. We can't finance that, not only because of our size, but we're limited because of our regulatory reasons.
So Bruce, tell me, where do you see this going? The interesting thing really with everything happening in Washington is there's so many moving parts right now. And I don't think anyone who's covered federal politics has ever really seen anything quite like what's happened over the last, say, 6 months. So what are you watching for? And if people are hearing this saying, listen, we agree with you guys, or we don't, who do you reach out to? Who's going to decide this thing?
Who's going to decide this thing ultimately, I think, will be the American people, at the end of the day, whenever that day is over. But I think what we need to remember is when you look at market share of credit unions as against banks, the amount of tax revenue that could be generated at the federal level is a drop in the bucket of what the federal government needs. And they have bigger fish to fry. Government, if nothing, is a big lumbering elephant. It's not a nimble animal. So it's going to go where it can get the most revenue with the least amount of work. So we need to be vigilant that we don't get scooped up in an omnibus tax package, but as an absolute dollar amount, we don't foresee the risk of us being a deep pocket to pick.
Only 30 seconds left. If someone's watching this and they don't know, I'm a community, they know a community bank, a big bank, they know you. Give us your pitch, 30 seconds. Why should they be against this?
Well, I mean, a lot of the benefits that I talked about, the lower rates on loans, higher deposit rates, little to no fees. And I really want to emphasize the personalized service, because all of us that work at Nutmeg, we understand the communities. We're from the communities. We're, all around this area in particular, so we get it. And people can call us. People call me all the time, reach out to me for different things. I don't think they're going to be able to talk to a CEO of Bank of America.
All right. Well, there's your pitch. We appreciate it. John Holt, Bruce Adams, thank you both for being with us, and we'll continue to watch this issue.
Thanks.
Thank you.